We just wrapped the movie, our short film Scene. That is the winning script from the script competition that I held this year. And here's what I learned as a director, as a first-time director. Nothing prepares you. I am saying firsthand that nothing prepares you, and I don't think it matters how many years you've been on set, how many years you've worked next to a director as a script supervisor, as a first AD, and you've been working with directors for a very, very long time. Nothing truly prepares you until you're actually in the hot seat of being a director yourself. If you have years of experience on set, watching and working alongside a director, it does help. You get to observe what they do, how they do things, and then you can kind of develop your own style, but it does not compare to actually being in that position yourself. If you saw my other video about being a director for the first time, I was a little anxious. Now, that video was during pre-production when we were still prepping, and now that all is said and done, we have everything in the can, everything is shot, principal photography is over, and we're in post-production. I definitely was nervous, but I think on the day, I just kind of went into the flow of, I know it, I know the actors, I know the story, I know everything, so the anxiety kind of washed away.
Thank you! Woo!
On the day, there's no room or time for you to be nervous and choke up and not know what to do. So start off the lessons that I learned. It all starts with your crew and the people you have around you. This is very, very important. This is so vital. And I can't stress this enough. The people you surround yourself with when you're doing a film, short film, feature, whatever it is, it's very important. The vibes they bring, the tone, are they helpful? Are they bringing their own force? Are they giving energy to the project? This is all very important. And I think that I chose people that I trusted, chose people that I knew I could trust in those positions that I hired them for. And I felt like the team was really good. And here's something that my director's assistant, Ivan, what he said he learned from the project.
There's a lot of things I could go on about, but to keep it nice and simple is getting the right people in the right seat is what I like to say. Right people, right seat. If you get the right people from the get-go, you can have a strong pre-production. And when you have a strong pre-production, it leads to a smooth production. And when you have a smooth production, the overall picture, the overall energy and the message and everything is going to get captured so right. And I think getting the right people is like the biggest lesson. Just for example, the DP, Darren, that she got, just the collaborative discussions that Amber was having with Darren, where, he's comfortable enough to bring up ideas, different shots that they can try out and suggest that, and she's comfortable enough with him to deny or move forward with. When you got the right person, you can get some really good creative things done. And I think that's the biggest, most important lesson.
And we all did it for no money, basically. Very, very minimal cost, but even so, it still cost about $2,000 to do this short film. And because we had a deaf actress, we had to have an interpreter, we had to have film insurance because we were in a public library, and also the DP's gear, we had to make sure those things were covered. So with insurance, this is something I learned. You make sure you have insurance. Insurance is very, very important. Even if it's a one-day shoot, I think when you have insurance, people get a little bit more relaxed. Everyone kind of breathes a sigh of relief. Everyone's like, okay, if anything happens, we're covered. And the library was expecting it, and I just wanted to make sure the gear that the DP brought on, his stuff was covered. So it's very, very important to make sure you have insurance. We paid $490 for our insurance, and that was from Film Emporium, and that's kind of on the cheaper end. We got quotes that were like $650, $700, $550. Make sure you shop around, and if there's anything that anyone can do for you for your short film, even if it's zero budget, make sure you invest and you get the insurance. I know you can do a guerrilla style, but I'm just saying insurance is the way to go. This is being said with me being an assistant director. That is my bread and butter. I'm a first AD and I run the set and I work really, really closely with the director. And now me stepping into the director role, I had to have an assistant director. And with that being said, you have to have an AD that matches you or at least balances you out, and they need to be as strong as you. And I say that because the AD that I worked with, Chris, God bless him, he was great, but I just don't think he was ready for the energy that I had because I was more experienced on set. I think I had higher expectations, but he also didn't have that much experience with scripted things, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's all just a learning experience, and that's why I bring people onto my productions that are there to learn and to level up. And this is what he said he learned from our movie scene.
Now, my big lesson as the first AD for this production was that I need to make sure that I really sit down and talk to the director and DP and get into some details before we show up on set. Now, I met with Amber, the director, and Darren, our DP, beforehand, and we kind of talked some things through. Had the shot list and asked some questions about that. But what happened was I took what's essentially it's a 5-page script with 2 scenes, and I actually broke them up into probably about 5 scenes because I thought we're not going to do these long scenes all in one take. So I'm going to chunk them up based on kind of what makes sense so that it's a little bit easier when it comes to slating and editing and everything else like that. I didn't ask the questions. So what wound up happening was Amber and Darren wanted to shoot each scene in its entirety all the way through from the different angles every single time. Had I asked about this, had I kind of gone into more details, it wouldn't have been as confusing on set for me or our amazing script supervisor, Gabby. It threw things off. And as we were going forward, it caused a little bit more confusion when the EP, Robert, came up to me and asked where we were and how things were going, because I really didn't know. I just knew we were moving forward and the clock was ticking, and we're trying to get everything as fast as possible. Had I had that meeting, had I really asked more questions and dove into it, probably wouldn't have caused that confusion or those problems. So we still got it all done, and it's an amazing production, and we've got great actors. It's a great story, and Amber and Darren and the entire crew did an amazing job. But I could have made life a lot easier for everyone, and that's my job as the first AD. Could have made things a lot easier had I just asked some more questions ahead of time.
He did some things. He broke down the script a certain way, and I don't think he really asked me the questions like how I was shooting it. And for me, I am going to be shooting, if I can, I always suggest shooting it all in one go. There's no reason to break up a scene if it's 1 or 2 pages. If it's like 7, 8, 12 pages, sometimes you have those long scenes. There's no reason to break it up, and I think that was kind of where we kind of misaligned and things got kind of confusing on set. So making sure that your AD understands you, how you're going to shoot, how much you're going to shoot, and what the expectations are between each other. If you guys don't align, there's like this weird vibe between you, and you, the AD and the DP have to you gotta be together. You have to be in sync. And I was in sync with the DP, but not necessarily my AD. So as a director, you want to make sure that your AD is on your side, at your level, same energy, or they balance you out. Rehearsals, please do not skimp on rehearsal time. If you can, rehearse as much as possible. And with this story scene, since it had to do with like love at first sight and chemistry and being attracted to each other, the actors had to have chemistry on screen. If they didn't have that, it wasn't going to work. So I knew I had to have rehearsals, but also I had to have rehearsals because I just didn't have the luxury of time on the day. The library that we shot in, we were only there. I had between 9 a.m. to that's getting in the building at 9 a.m. and then we had to make sure we were done by around 1:30. So I did not have that many hours. So I knew I wouldn't have time to kind of like do an official blocking and prep a rehearsal and another, all these things that you would normally do on bigger union sets, bigger budgets and majors. If I didn't have those rehearsals, I think that the actors would have had less personal time with each other, less connecting points, and less time with each other. And I think that definitely would have affected the outcome of how they were when we shot. So rehearsals, do rehearsals as much as possible. And I think they were super useful for me. If I didn't have rehearsals, I think I would have definitely run out of time. I wouldn't have gotten as many shots as I did on the day, and they wouldn't have gotten along, and they wouldn't have had that chemistry that I saw with them when I shot with them. Plus, rehearsals are really good for everyone to get to know each other, because if you invite your AD and you have I had an ASL interpreter as well, so that was also something where she was getting to know our deaf actress and all these things. So it's really good to have rehearsals and text out to make sure people can meet each other and they're not meeting each other on the day of shooting. This is something I don't think I was prepared for as a director, and that's feeling so alone.
I sang all by myself to literally myself.
Now, I have felt this a little bit as a first AD, but as a first AD, you have your second, if that is the case. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. But then you also have like your set PAs that are on your team. And I don't think I've ever felt so like alone at the top of the mountain, I guess you would say, because I think there's no one there really that you can ask a question to and get an answer from, because you are the answer. You are the decisive person that needs to make a decision. You are the end of the line, basically, as a director. And I guess I really wasn't expecting that, because I really like to spitball ideas and, what do you think of this? And I wasn't able to really do that with anyone, really, because when you do it with your DP, it's like, well, what do you want? Basically, is what they're going to tell you or what they're going to ask you. You can't do it with your AD, because they're just like, they want you to decide to make sure that you have what you need and like you get it in timing that makes sense for them. I would say, like, make sure you have someone that is your support system that you can bounce ideas off of. And there was one moment where I was like, hey guys, what do you think about this? I just asked the whole crew and, does this make sense for the story? And that leads me to my next thing. I wasn't able to have the writer with me, Sean Martin. So Sean Martin hails from Ireland and he wanted to come here and be here for shooting, but he wasn't able to do it. And it's kind of funny that we actually shot on St. Patrick's Day, and it wasn't anything that we did, but the library that we were shooting in, they said the best day to shoot was Tuesday. We wanted to shoot that Saturday prior, but Tuesday was better for them, so it just so happens that we have an Irish writer, and we shot on St. Patrick's Day. So I just think that's funny. He wasn't able to make it, and I think if I were to have the writer with me, that would have been my person to go and consult with and to have those conversations with that I really needed to make a creative decision with, because no one else was really that person. So have your writer on set with you if you can. So that was something I really think would have made a bit of a difference when it came to deciding certain things. I think following your instincts, I know people say this in other videos and making sure you go with your gut and all this stuff. I think it is so true in this, because as a director, you're making a lot of creative decisions, and sometimes you don't really know why, but you're like, whatever that is, I'm like, I think it's just this. You just have to go with your instincts. And when you go against your instincts, it doesn't usually go well. And I went against my instincts for one or two things. I shall not say what they are. And they ended up being how I thought they would be. And I was like, I did go against my better judgment, and I shouldn't have. I went against my instincts, and the outcome was as expected. Definitely follow your instincts. It's just, for whatever reason, sometimes things push you in a certain direction, and you just have to make sure you're listening to your intuition and your instincts. No one is going to know the story like you, and no one should know the story like you unless they are the writer. And because the writer wasn't on set with me, I felt like I needed to know the story. I needed to know the beats. I needed to know everything front to back. I needed to be able to watch the actors and not actually follow a script. I had to make sure that I knew the story front to back. And I think sometimes that is not what happens when certain directors are on set and they're not prepared. So I made sure that I was prepared with my shot list, beats, certain things I know I needed, like notes from rehearsals, everything. And I just knew the story so well. And sometimes I got a little confused because we made changes during rehearsals, and I was like, oh wait, we changed that. And I'm like, looking at the script like, wait, this doesn't make sense. And that will lead me to my next one. Making sure that you know the story as a director, because no one's going to know it better than you, because this is your movie, right? So know your story. With the script, as I mentioned in the last one, following your story, but you don't have to use the script so strictly. And I say that so lightly and delicately, because I do not want to disrespect any of the writers out there. And I say that only because sometimes some things come out in performance. Sometimes some things get discovered in performance and it's not scripted. So I think there's some wiggle room there where you are doing rehearsals and you see something and there's a layer that gets revealed that you didn't really, read in the script. So yes, follow the script as much as possible. But then sometimes if you're trying some things out, some things that are scripted, they don't work out the way you would think. So then that's how some things are going to change when you're shooting. Not necessarily being like, oh, if it's not on the script, we're not going to shoot it, we're not going to do it. I think you just have to give yourself the liberty of being like, this doesn't work, this does work. Or, oh wow, that looks cool, let's do this. Or you discovered something that was funny that wasn't in the script or something like that. So not having to follow the script so fiercely, and following it to a T. And I know sometimes what'll happen is that your script supervisor is going to be like, this is not what's scripted. There may be a little bit of a back and forth, or maybe just a little discussion about certain moments that weren't exactly scripted and now it's happening on camera, because that might mess up your editor a little bit. So making sure you take really good notes of when you change certain things. You definitely can change some things, and some things get discovered and some things don't work when it comes to your script, and that's okay. I think one thing I really noticed when I was mentoring the directors for the short film challenge and seeing them work on set is they got really, really into the framing and what the camera was doing, what the camera was seeing, but they really forgot about their actors. And that's something I made sure to really focus on for this movie scene, because I knew if the actors didn't bring the performance, why are we watching this? Is anyone gonna watch this? Why are we making it, right? So I wanted to make sure that I really paid attention to what the actors were doing. Performance was my number one thing. And yes, there's so many other decisions that you're going to have to make, and making sure you like the frame and the DP sets up and whatever, that you're approving things that are being done. But it really is about the performance, and don't forget about your actors. And one thing that I made sure to do was tell your actors why. You're going to give them a lot of direction. You're going to give them a lot of different things that you want them to do. And some directors don't do it. And I've seen it where they don't tell their actors why they're doing something or why you want something a certain way. So, and this was told to me when I was on set, is that I was really good at telling the actors why. So that was kind of some good feedback that I got from them. Don't be afraid to explain why you want something and why they're doing it. If you are trying to direct something, definitely create your own opportunity. I really mean that, because this movie came out of thin air. Basically, I decided to put on a script competition, and then I was like, I'm just going to direct it. What's going to happen? And I just put a team together, and you just have to ask. Just ask people to help you, and you never know what you're going to get. Honestly, people were so happy to come on board and do this thing for very, very little money or no money. And if I didn't ask, it wouldn't have happened. And I think a really good example is we needed a background for the library. I wasn't initially going to worry about background for the library, but once we got in there, I was like, okay, in order to sell it as a college library, we need background. We need college students to be background, or, people to be college students. And I was like, oh God, how am I going to get, 10 background? To get 10 background is actually, it may be easy for some, but I was like, oh God, 10 people is a lot, because you ask people to show up and they don't make it and they no show and all this stuff. So I was like, hey, one of my alumni, Adam, God bless him, because I think most of the background came from him. One came from me, another one came from my director's assistant, and that was pretty much it. All the other ones came from Adam. I knew he was a background actor, and I knew he was an actor, so I knew he knew a lot of people, and I was like, yo, Adam, can you help me out? I need background for this day. And the emails started coming in. So if I didn't ask, that wouldn't have happened. So all I'm saying is just be brave enough to ask people for their help. Even with the DP, I knew Darren for many, many years, and he has loads of experience, and I wasn't really sure if he was going to do this thing or not, but I was like, Alana, my producer, reached out to him, and I told him, I was like, I should have reached out to you. I'm so sorry, but I was nervous. I was nervous to ask him. And he was like, don't ever be nervous, Amber. Don't ever be nervous. So just have to ask. Ask your people, the people that you trust, people that you like working with. Just ask them, because you never know. So for my aspiring directors, if you are trying to direct, definitely I encourage you to create your own opportunities. Get out there, make something, even if it's a 2-page short, just get out there and start doing it. And if you want to nerd out about director things, please put it in the comments. I love to know what you have learned as a first-time director. What's something that you learned as a director? Put that in the comments for me. So for all my directors out there, good luck. I know whatever you're working on next is going to be great. That's it for now. I shall see you next time.